Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ott X Buzz, where we bring together prominent panels of industry leaders, executives, and pundits to discuss the latest buzz in OTT, CTV, and streaming. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and we're delighted to have you join us today, whether that be on Zoom or LinkedIn Live. As always, this buzz session will be recorded and available on demand on YouTube and via podcast on Spotify. We encourage you to subscribe and make sure you don't miss out on any of the latest buzz. As you may know, February is Black History Month, and we here at OTTX pride ourselves in amplifying the reach, engagement, and representation of diverse voices, experiences, and identities of all people. So we are extremely delighted that for today's Buzz session, we are joined by a panel made up of Black and African industry leaders and catalysts. We are very excited to learn more about these executives and their unique experiences as they've made their way successfully in their business, as well as their takes on the latest buzz in OTT, CTV, and streaming. Without further ado, I will turn it over to today's moderator for introductions. Our moderator for this buzz session is the Chief Marketing Officer for NPR, Michael Smith. Michael and our esteemed panel, thank you so much for joining us today. Take it away.
Yeah, here we are. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Because this is Black History Month and we are commemorating the success and achievements of Black people throughout American history, I wanted to just talk with each of you about your own personal journeys as Black executives making it through this industry. I know when I got in the industry almost over 30 years ago, I think I could probably count on one hand, 4 or 5 Black people who were anywhere in the industry at any. I don't think there were any at any of the broadcast networks. There were some at local stations, people like Gene Lothery and at some local stations. But today it's amazing to see so many in the hundreds, and including so many that we can get easily get 4 or 5 on a panel. But I know it wasn't always that easy for all of you. You guys have been in the business, some of you 20 or 30 years. So just tell us your story, the obstacles you had to overcome, the lessons that you've learned, the kind of things you wish you had known when you would tell your 16-year-old self today, if you had to do it all over again. And so I'll start with Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it, and I'm really excited to talk with all of you as we just learn about everyone's stories and share them online. And to me, it's really important to recognize just 2 perspectives. It's personal success is just persistent and ongoing, and I believe that we all simultaneously achieved mutual respect within the industry. Yet there's still so much work that needs to be done, and work that needs to be done for future generations as we kind of pave a path forward. And that second reality for me personally is that success has been attributed to many different mentors encouraging me, allowing me to grow, to fail, encouraging my successes. I don't think anyone in any leadership position achieved their success in a vacuum alone. So I want to offer my gratitude to a lot of mentors over the last 20, 30 years. I began with the military kind of unconventionally, moved to manufacturing, worked in tech and then engineering. Eventually found myself as a content creator myself, working with Machinima for over a decade, working with BuzzFeed. And a lot of my insight comes from walking that path as a filmmaker, as a content creator, understanding the hurdles, as a Black filmmaker, as an Asian filmmaker, biracial filmmaker, and trying to improve that path, as a project manager, trying to find inefficiencies and inequalities to try and improve the process. And, really what inspired me to jump into the entertainment industry. Unironically, I'm a huge fan of Stargate. I'm a huge fan of Independence Day. I'm the director of operations for Electric Now, which is owned by Dean Devlin, the writer and producer for both those movies. I come from a very, very poor family. My dad was a Marine. I lived on Camp Pendleton for a good portion of my life. And there were times where, we didn't even have cable, not even basic cable. And I found myself just watching Independence Day on VHS over and over again. And it resonated with me in a lot of different ways. My dad being Marine, the main character, Will Smith, being a Marine. To be honest, I probably leaned towards becoming a Marine fighter pilot before wanting to jump into the entertainment industry. But I really connected with seeing positive portrayals of Black male role models and characters, and that really just I could identify that with my own father and seeing that on screen, and Dean and the the director at the time, Roland Emmerich, having that insight to take that maybe risk or that opportunity to showcase that. And it's one of my favorite movies because of that. And I really wanted to jump into the entertainment industry and um, get more heavily involved in that. And that's really what I wanted to put onto the passion of other filmmakers.
And what are some of the obstacles that you think of that you remember, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think I lived in California for a couple of decades. I moved to Colorado. I moved to a small conservative city in Colorado. And I was often the only black face in the room, in school and work. And what that really struck me is that, as being the only African American black face in the room, you tend to feel this pressure that you are representative of the entire race and the history of a people. And there is enormous subconscious pressure to perform and to not fail and to not allow yourself to fail because, in a meeting or a conversation or teaching or, or studying with other peers, you feel this sense that if you fail, if you give the incorrect information, if you are wrong, the person you're talking to or having that conversation with will never trust another black person ever again. And for me personally, that motivated my sense that I always had to be a subject matter expert. I always had to be the one that had the answers. And psychologically, it's destructive, and it doesn't really allow for true growth. And when you're working through the industry and you hear options or hear suggestions that, hey, Michael, myself, maybe he's the affirmative action hire or the DEI hire, that's also destructive, and so you always want to continuously, find and justify your existence within a space. So I think for all of you, certainly for myself, you find yourselves trying to excel as much as possible to really prove your worth. But if I could go back to 16, I would share the wisdom that I've learned from other mentors, regardless of the race or their ethnicities. It's okay to fail. Give your permission to make mistakes and to grow and to learn, and find others who are willing to, facilitate that growth and really listen and encourage, rebuilding your brand and growing and failing. And yeah, that's the biggest lesson I've learned over the years.
That is great. Aaliyah, what's your story? Were you always someone who wanted to go into media and entertainment, or was it something that came later in life?
Yeah, no, I've always wanted to be in entertainment. I always kind of knew that it was sort of a matter of how, not what, to figure out exactly how I was going to navigate my way there. I'm originally from Michigan, grew up in Detroit, the Detroit area, and so initially I thought I was going to do music, but truly, I think for me, I always was very into television. I think it creates a sense of sort of intimacy if you've invited these characters into your homes, these stories into your homes, and they become a regular sort of part of your life, right? Week by week, you're watching these stories. And so I just always was super cognizant of like how many folks looked like me and looked like my family on screen. So that became a very big through line for me throughout my career. And studied music in college because again, I really thought that's what I was going to do. And eventually went to law school, left Michigan, ended up coming to LA because for me it was either New York or LA, and I decided I was done with the snow after all those years in Michigan. So moved to LA and really just sort of dug in, focused on entertainment law, worked at big studios, small production companies all around the way to try to really sink my teeth into what it meant to for me be an entertainment attorney and what that would look like. And the biggest lesson that I really sort of experienced was when I was working at a studio. I really it became very clear to me that in that experience, I was going to simply be a cog in the machine. There's a million other things kind of happening, and really I was like touching this one part, very, very, very tiny. And I really, really understood for me, I wanted to be the machine. I needed to understand it. I needed to like see what the full process looked like. And that really sort of started my entrepreneurial journey. I really started looking at working with smaller companies. I worked with a lot of production companies. I ended up, as an attorney, I worked with a lot of small business owners, just understanding business from their perspective and seeing how that worked. And so, when Reverie, which is the company I'm a co-founder and chief operating officer for, came about, it made a lot of sense in so many ways for me. One, I really got to sort of flex that entrepreneurial muscle and all the lessons I've learned from my clients over the years, but also I got to kind of put my put myself in the position to really sort of the thing I've been preaching about representation being so important. I really got to like dig in there from that perspective, working with Reverie, because while I'm an ally to the community, what was super important to me, and my co-founders will tell you this as we were like going through this, I always say Reverie was the easiest yes of my life, but there's like a big asterisk with that, which is simply that I said, if we're going to do this, it cannot be the way the traditional queer media has worked. It cannot be the same sort of white, gay, male stories that get focused on over and over, because this community is very big. It is a community of communities, and there's so many people who have never seen themselves on screen. And so it really created an opportunity for me to really sort of live in that purpose that I've been talking about for a long time around representation, and really kind of prove it, because it's got nothing to do with me. I'm an ally to the community, but it still reflected how important that truly is as far as a personal mission in my life, to ensure that people can at least see themselves on screen.
And taking that leap from, I guess, a more steady corporate environment to an entrepreneurial environment, for a lot of people, that's super scary. I mean, we're in no healthcare. Is it going to be around? How are you going to pay your mortgage? I mean, is that something that was inside you, that bravery to bet on yourself? Because a lot of people would be terrified.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was really important, and I think I had hit a place in my career where, again, I moved all the way to LA. I left all of my family back in Detroit, so I was like living this life of like, this is what I moved here for. If I'm not going to be able to be with my family on a day-to-day basis, and I'm making this huge sacrifice, and they also are making this sacrifice with me not being there, then why am I not doing the thing that I said I would moved here to do? And what better opportunity to do that than to be able to not only work in entertainment properly, but also to like start something and create a network itself, and be able to give folks an opportunity to see themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to go take the risk, you got to go all in. Yeah. Terry, tell us your story.
I got something in common with both of the stories so far. My dad was a Marine, by the way, Michael. And I too kind of knew from a very early age that I wanted to get into entertainment. I was, a latchkey kid raised on TV, and I grew up in Philly and sort of always had dreams and aspirations of moving to LA. I fortunately had some peers at the time that when I was in high school who went the entertainment route. One of them being one of my classmates was actually Will Smith. So I got to see his trajectory of, being a silly kid in high school, rapping and becoming a successful rapper, and then turning that into, the career he has today. So I sort of had inspiration from afar. Uh, in sense of guys that I knew, who grew up in the hoods I grew up in were going out to Hollywood making it. So that was sort of an inspiration for sure. I got started in the marketing side. I was actually, again, kind of navigating my own way with no mentors and no one who looked like me coming up. There was no LinkedIn, or at least it wasn't a thing. I didn't have mutual connections with anybody when I was coming up. So I got started, landed a job at Anheuser-Busch working in their marketing division, and sort of got a taste of sort of entertainment from that side. getting to work with talent and big sponsors and getting to work Super Bowls and the Olympics and being around celebrities. And I was sort of like the go-to guy for anything entertainment related. At a very young age, I was given that responsibility, which was kind of cool. But I knew LA is where I needed to be. So moved out here blindly. Again, I didn't know a soul out here, just thought, I could hold my own in a room if given the opportunity based on sort of the experience I was getting at Anheuser-Busch. But my first job in media, so to speak, was at Variety, which is the entertainment Bible. So I got close to, again, a lot of folks from the business side of entertainment. There were no black executives at Variety at all. I wasn't dealing with any black executives on the producer side or on the studio side at all. I didn't see anyone who looked like me, and I realized that I need to some way somehow get to a position where I am someone in power or I am an executive so someone can look up to me and I can be a mentor to them and help make that road a little bit easier for the next generation or the younger executive. So the challenges were just that. I did not really have anyone to kind of lean on and get their experience coming up. Probably much like you, Michael, you've been in the business a long time, Linwood as well. Not to say you guys aren't either, Michael and Aaliyah, but I'm older than both of you by a lot. So I wanted to make sure I worked my way into a position where I could be a mentor. I just did not have anyone to lean on. So the challenge was just that. How do I, remain confident? Meanwhile, I think Michael, it was you who mentioned the experience you had of, is this the token hire? Is this guy, we're putting this trust in him. Is he gonna, F this up, so to speak? And there's a lot of internal pressure you put on yourself to perform and be the smart, articulate executive that they hired you to be. There were some nights that I felt like I was faking it till I make it, so to speak, until I got a grasp of the industry because I didn't really know the entertainment industry when I got started. I was just trying to figure it out. Luckily, I worked for a media company that was the business of entertainment that was slapped on my desk every morning. So I'm reading. I was the first one in the office. Every day, I made sure I read Variety cover to cover so that I understood who the players were. That inspired me to create my own production company that I did back in 2007. I took a couple of hiatuses out of the media industry. Did not know you worked for BuzzFeed at all, Michael, so I'm finding that out today. I was a BuzzFeed OG. I was the first executive at BuzzFeed in Los Angeles. Also, I think the first Black employee. I was within the first 20 employees at BuzzFeed. So um, I was always like the first Black person, Black executive everywhere I went. Yahoo Entertainment, Huffington Post, everywhere I went, I was the first Black executive. So it was important for me to be the example, be on panels like we are today, be on general industry panels, and have people come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey, man, it was great to see someone who looked like me on this panel representing us in such a fine way." So it was super important to me. I still continue to give back. I mentor a lot of college students and a lot of young executives in this industry right now. So I'm paying it forward. Fortunately, I was confident in myself to create that path that led me to where I am today. So,
Well, Terry, you said that when you came in, there weren't people that looked like you, and there weren't easily accessible mentors. So, how did you learn and Were there other individuals that helped you, or?
There were a few. I fortunately, by chance, through a mutual friend, I actually befriended a gentleman by the name of Chris Albrecht, who
Mm,
at that time the
on
head of
HBO.
HBO. He was a legend in the biz, greenlit some of the most, iconic TV shows that Sex and the City and The Sopranos. And he was a bit of a mentor. I was able to lean on him for some guidance through a few life events. He actually made some amazing introductions for me over the years. I almost became a talent agent at one point. I was just trying to figure it out, man. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But I would say if I had to point to one person, early in my career, it would have been Chris Albrecht, who was somewhat of an industry mentor to me.
All right. And Linwood, last but not least, what's your story?
Oh God, I'm knowing these guys. These are some great stories. I'm just entertained. Uh, I came a little different than everybody else here. I was an accounting major in college, so most people would never think that. Then I went to finance. I started in tech and e-commerce, so I was doing that. I built a company with a bunch of guys I went to college with. We sold that in '96 and did it again, sold that, did it again. So, when I listen to some of these stories, of course, I was in the rooms and walking into certain brands, and there's 22 people and me on the other side of the table. And you deal with comments like, wow, you're so articulate. Would you expect we're doing a $20 million deal? What am I supposed to say to you? Right. So sometimes you have to just deal with some of the things that and we actually took them as my advantage. I should laugh. They have all these people here, and they're going to be wowed by whatever I do because they don't know their expectations of me are nowhere near my expectations of me. So I thought that was funny. I used to find that hilarious to me. Like, what? Like, how are we doing this? And I also thought that tech was the great equalizer. So I've always been where tech is the one place you can't stop us. You can't stop anything that we're doing. So I leaned on tech on everything I did because I knew that was the equalizer. So when and even I sold my company, Payne Brown was a good friend and said, yo, you're always moving. Come over here to Comcast. We just opened our offices in Philly. And I got to sit for 6 months. I didn't need the money. I needed to understand what was next. And I got to sit in a room with Payne Brown, Jennifer Geisky, and talk strategic initiatives, listening to a big company decide what they were going to do. And it was one of the best things I ever did because you feel like you got some ideas. I came in on a whiteboard and after 6 months wrote up what I wanted. And they were all looking at each other. And I was like, why are they looking at each other? Like, we're too big to play in those spaces you're talking about. But you're right. And they next day they placed an order for $2.3 billion in spectrum because what they saw coming was everything was going to be digital. The internet was, whatever this thing was, the internet was going to become dominant. And what they did was going to own the pipes. So if you look at last quarter Comcast earnings, they had record earnings, even though most people don't think about Comcast as record earnings. They own the internet. And they made that investment back in 2007. So while everybody else is chasing things, they're just going to buy a winner. And I got to know how big corporations think. So it helped me tremendously in my career. And from that, I did film finance. So a lot of people I know from that side of the world, I decided when I started that, I was not going to take any credits. And my job was true finance, not anything else. So I used to tell people, I can't be bought. I'm here to finance. So it's the only thing I'm here to do. And I learned the business on there. And one of the most critical things I learned uh, was I read. I did the work, right? So I always said, how can I be different? Do the work. And I will say I learned lunch windows. And one of my customers in the day was this company that was black and yellow, and they used to just do gaming DVDs. They used to buy it from me all the time, and I would go pick up my check from their house, from the guy's house. The company is Netflix. right? So I used to know them when they were just a company selling gaming, and they told me one day, we're going to go to Stream or whatever the hell they said. I was like, yeah. I don't know what that is. Make sure you pay your bill. So when we were doing film finance, what was interesting, working with the Salter Group and everything, was seeing that they created a new rights window. Right. So when you look at that rights window that Netflix created, it was between digital and television so that they could save some money on the cost of what they're doing, but also create their own window. And it was a smart strategic play. It's one I stole. So when I launched my company, created my own rights window. It went with the Light Piper to every studio and exercised that window. So I've always been, as Michael and Terry and everybody said, is I'm a student. I'm always constantly learning because I know when I walk in a room, I need to be able to answer all and every question. Are we held at a different standard? The answer is yes. Actually, enjoy that because I never wanted to be good, excellent. I wanted to be extraordinary. So I actually find it a blessing that most of us who are Black know we got one chance, no chance to mess it up. And I said, great. That makes me be extraordinary even more and super focused and hyper focused. And so I use all those things as my advantage. I think some people look at it the other way. I look at it as a great advantage, a great way to lead and to win. Um, and I think it's helped me tremendously, and it's helped our company tremendously to have that mindset. Um, and the reason why I built the company was I was in Hollywood a lot and listening to people, and I kept hearing this. It didn't add up. You're saying content is king, content is king, content is king, and I'm sitting there going, but I'm in the room, and that's not really the case, right? Like I know people who make the most beautiful thing in the world. Nobody's ever seen it, so content can't be king. And then I said, all right, fine, content's king, then distribution's emperor. And so that is really what. So I said, if distribution's emperor, how do I open the door for people who are telling great stories that I want to see? So we built a network where we are the distribution, and then we partner with people that make great content.
We had a saying at BuzzFeed, and it was content is king, but distribution is queen, and the queen wears the pants in the household. Yeah.
Had to be something because
Yeah.
the content king thing wasn't working for me.
Yeah, right.
People are overspending making content and didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. I've seen people go out of business for that. I've seen people come in unrealistic expectations. I'm going to do this for 500,000 an episode, thinking that, oh, PT's gonna take this or this one's gonna take this. And I'm like, I don't know if you know economics, but that's something that you might want to sit down. Let me bring this back down to earth for you. I just think that's what our responsibility is to each other. And I've seen it coming from, I'm going to age myself, coming from the 90s, where it felt like everybody Black was told there's one seat, it's right there, go fight for it. And I saw divisiveness, but I also was friends with like Kirk McDonald from '96. And Kirk might be mad at me telling everybody this, but back when he was working at PC Mag and Ziff Davis. So I had people like Kirk that we used to be able to talk like, oh shit, it's just another one of us. And then I got lucky in that when AOL Time Warner merged, I had got the chance to meet with Dick Parsons and actually see somebody like that's running something that big with grace and style and just the measured way. And he let me come up for a couple months. It didn't even reason to have a meeting. You just come on up, we would have a reason. There was no agenda. It was allowing me to get that viewpoint into what he did. That helped change me in how I led. And also, I really don't give a damn about any seat and any door. I feel like I belong just as much as anybody else. And the imposter thing, people ask me that all the time, and I will say, I just don't give a damn. I was taught that from a young age that you can do anything. So if they believe I can do it, my grandparents believe I can do it. I believe I can do it. So it's been my motto. It's in my brain that I'm just wired that way. That I believe I can do anything I damn well please. And I've seen the people that have gotten seats. I know they weren't better than me. So I'm like, now I really know I can do it. So I think that's I think the opportunity now, and I see it even in this environment we're in right now. I started this company in 16. We launched in January of 17. January of 2025, very similar time of year. Same president, same thing, same energy was going on. And people ask me, how do you feel? Well, I feel great. What are you talking about? Don't worry about things I can't control. Focus on the things I can, and do not let them distract us from the goal, from the prize. You're going to hear a lot of noise. Get through the noise. Focus on what you're trying to accomplish. And obviously, you can't ignore things, but you should be. If your goals are aligned and what you're trying to do is aligned with what your purpose is, this won't stop you from that. If you have to move in different ways, move. But don't tell me that stopped you, because that's just not true.
Yeah, Limit, you touched on something that I've noticed over the years that has changed. We talk about those 1C or people fight almost more the crabs in the barrel kind of attitude. I feel like there's been a shift over time to more of an abundance outlook, because I remember in the early days, if I reached out to like the one or two Black executives who were in there, they were kind of like, yeah, I'll talk to you kind of, but I don't really want to help you too much because you might take what I have and there's only one spot here. To a world where now, look what you guys are doing today. I mean, I feel like there's more of a sense of
word of collaboration.
Like, yeah, let's help each other out.
Let's help each other.
You know what I mean? Like,
let's share.
I'm on emails with groups of us. Yeah, like we just talk. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm literally just had a call this morning. Just, I'm doing this. What do you think? Like, I don't remember those in late 90s, 2000s. Now those are happening weekly with people I know. I mean, and not to be like, I just did a guest editing for Ad Age, because Janine and that team were great, because they asked me like, yo, you always know all these people. And I'm like, they're right here. Like, there's more of us here. Mm-hmm. To your point, Michael, there's so many more of us now.
Right.
They always think about the small group. So when they asked me to be a guest editor and allowed me to bring people on, I thought that was the best part of it, right? So we got 5 more people that people don't always see. Mm-hmm. It's like Daytron Thomas, everybody in the culture knows Daytron. I don't know him, which is shocking to me. Like, he's part of, everybody knows Daytron, like everybody. And so I was excited to see him write an article, be an Ad Age, and let everybody see it. To me, that gave me more joy than just my article written in there. It was really seeing a guy that has been so critical to culture, getting his chance, his ability, his shine, which he deserves, and should have been there a long time ago, before I was even in there. He should have been in there with his impact. So I'm excited about those type of things where I don't think we would have done it for each other 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I'm excited about.
Well, I want to transition and kind of jump off of something you were talking about with the content is king and the distribution is queen or emperor or rich uncle or whatever. And because there seems to have always been historically consolidation on both sides. There are a few major distribution chokeholds. It was cable operators, satellite players, and then on the content side there were big conglomerates, Disney, Fox, whatever. Now, and as we go into the OTT era and digital era, do you see that continuing with just new players? Like, is distribution going to be, YouTube, TikTok, Amazon? They'll be, and then content will be, 4 or 5 big streaming. Do you see it the same way, or do you think it's going to be different with digital? That maybe there'll be more fragmentation and just more abundance of both?
I think that those players will always be there, whether they decide to consolidate a little bit more than they are now. But I think the fragmentation will still be there too. There is still an appetite and desire to see and hear authentic stories. Much to what Aaliyah and Reverie does. We do it at Cineverse as well in terms of some of the niche, kind of obscure content that we have on Cineverse. I think that desire will always be there, that appetite will always be there, and I just don't see the big guys supplying us with that. So I'm sure Aaliyah probably, all of you probably have some deep thoughts on that, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be silly for us to think that they wouldn't do that. I mean, it's just a part of the game. But what I will say is that because of the way technology, I love the way you put that, Linwood, it truly is the great equalizer. Because of the way the technology is like presented itself and made things so much easier for people to get into the space, it now created this chance, this opportunity, one, for very like segment focused platforms to exist, but it also has created a space where you don't just have to create the content, you can also be distribution as well. And I think that's just as important, to be able to create avenues for this content to have a place to go. Because otherwise, yeah, we're going to still just be waiting for gatekeepers to make the decision of who gets to be in and who gets to not be in. And because of being able to be a smaller player in the space, we also have the opportunity to be way more nimble than these huge corporations. They can't make these shifts. They just can't make these changes. It's
right.
impossible. They're just now sort of figuring out, oh, fast. I think that's something maybe we should consider and really talk about. Whereas like,
Yeah.
that was something very beginning. In the beginning for us, it was like 2017. We're like, yeah, let's go get a channel. Okay, now let's build this in. Let's really make this a part of our ethos and our business, simply from the fact of like, as a consumer, at the end of the day, what do you want to do? Do you want to come home after making a billion decisions every day and then being like, I got to make another decision? Or can I just turn my TV on and I got something that's going to watch me as I watch it, right? That's just thinking as a consumer. And I think these larger businesses, these largest corporations don't have the ability to be as nimble to make these shifts and changes. And so a lot of the innovation we're going to see, it's going to take them a bit to sort of keep up with that. That's just my opinion on that.
Well, Lee,
Yeah.
you were talking about coming home. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Well, no, I was just going to add in, I think there's a general sentiment, that the streaming wars are kind of dwindling down. And I think the reality is that YouTube and social media platforms are continuing to innovate and to push and to democratize, the whole distribution process for indie publishers and content creators. And I would assume that there's going to be a continuing of consolidation on the major players. There's going to be consolidation of fast platforms, fast channels on different platforms, but we're going to see more opportunities for distribution from device manufacturers, from OEMs, and the content creator themselves. I mean, with a lot of tools being made available, with the small indie app developers, such as Otera, they can take those avenues to launch their own channels and to serve their own audience as they need. And I think that we're going to see, I think both. I don't think, the mid-tier services like Max, Paramount, Peacock, they're not going to disappear. They're not going to, consolidate completely, but there's always going to be a need for, both avenues available for the audience. The traditional Hollywood system, the studio system, as well as the indie content creator system that's propped up with, the indie publisher, app developer with, a content creator or a distribution system.
Do you think brands will matter more or matter less? It seems like in the cable era, brands were everything. The platforms were pretty generic, whether it's Comcast or AT&T, whatever, but the brands really told you what you were going to get. And in the streaming era, it seems like I'm not sure what the difference is between HBO, I'm sorry, I call it HBO, between Max and Netflix and Amazon Prime. They all have some sports and they all have dramas and it's kind of blurring. And then YouTube is everything, TikTok is everything. But yet, you guys have seemed to have carved out, like at Cineverse and Reverie, like there's an expectation of horror and Cineverse and LGBT friendly stories at Reverie. How do you see brands living in the future?
Can I just say one more thing back on the platform? And this is kind of just my observations working with corporations and watching what's going on here. I think part of for my challenge, watching this ecosystem and watching people call me because they can't get marketing. I'm seeing so many channels go up and they've spent all their money on content and they're not able to market themselves. And you're running into a problem where there's a million channels, but no marketing, and then there's no viewership, and then there's no money. So I think we got to find I think the challenge should be how do we help a group of channels get marketing and positioning and content, and how do we consolidate or use data or something to bring channels together to aggregate advertising and support behind these channels so that they can still be there. Let's assume what's going to happen is you're going to have the have and have nots unless we help pull them up. So that's one thing I'm just observing, because all of these platforms are calling me going, you know, 100 channels and I can't get anybody to watch.
Mhm.
Right. And so that call is coming from the bigger, you know, the Fukus and the people like that. We're talking about these channels and don't want people to get dropped. So I want people to start thinking about that part of their business. And then for me also, as a consumer, as you said, I'm sitting here, when I come home, I don't want to think. So I trust my brands to deliver me, right? Um, and this is even challenge for the bigger brands, even the Netflix of the world. I'm on average, and I check it sometimes, and I get frustrated with myself because I'm like, damn it, I just did it again. I'll spend 22 minutes zooming around Netflix, and then get frustrated and go back to USA and watch Law and Order, right? Because I mean, what? I can't figure this out. It's too much.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need a recommendation engine that tells me, you know, my friend Michael is watching this. I want to watch that, right? And I just don't want to think when I clock out. So I think everybody here needs to find better ways to bring your friendship. Like, look at Instagram, Facebooks, whatever social platform you are. You're seeing stories of other your friends. Why is there not? And there's companies, I invested in one, but I'm not going to give you that name because I don't want to make this bad. I'm saying, but there's companies out there that are looking at your social and pushing you recommendations of what I'm watching. Personally, I love that. I want to know what my friends are watching because now it makes my journey easier. I do not want to spend 22 minutes searching and having FOMO that I'm gonna miss out on watching this or watching that. And I think that is if somebody solves that in a real way, you know what I mean? You know where I'm going. I know some people are doing it. But
Yeah.
that's the universal challenge that
Yeah.
will help drive the viewership.
Well, good point you made. That Cineverse is actually working on that right now. We have already a beta launch of an AI friend called CineSearch that is going to allow you to talk to an AI-powered search engine that helps you decide what you want to stream. You'll be able to, put in all the streaming services that you have. So Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, you name it, and it'll know your history from those streaming services and then be able to have a real-time conversation. We call it Ava for now. And you'll be able to ask Ava, hey, I want to watch a movie by Quentin Tarantino that is blah blah blah, and it'll kind of walk you through. It'll know your watch history from the other streaming services and be able to recommend titles and then show you exactly where you can go to watch it. So we're doing this in a partnership with Google. And I think it's going to be a game changer. There's OEMs interested in it as well to have it preloaded on their television sets and things like that. So obviously brands will be able to, get their messages there as well. So we're excited about the wide launch of that, but it's in a beta launch right now. You can go to cinesearch.com though and sign up if you want a little plug.
I think those are.
Well, you're talking about
really
AI. That's a good jumping off point to just a broader discussion of how you guys feel AI is going to influence the industry in general, obviously in search and recommendation, but what about in production of content itself? Just some thoughts.
Can I give you mine just really quick?
Mhm.
I'm using AI everywhere as a tool in between functionality. So I'll give you one that will be more like in tune with everybody in this call, because you won't bore you with the stuff that we do. I'll give you one that it was funny. They came to me about advertising. And I'm like, that's only like small percentage of what we do. Why not programming? So we've now reverse engined our AI tool to go, well, there's 4 people sitting here, 2 are female that do this, 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 and this. Instead, instead of running our next program, which is male-centric content, let's run our female content. So we are literally we're using the AI tool in our entire programming grid to almost in real time program our network based on who's sitting in front of our screens. So we reverse engineered that using AI. And we also have our backend platform allows our
just for guests who don't realize that the company that you created, it's place-based video entertainment, but so in restaurants, bars, airports, but how do you know
in-flight?
How do you know 2 women are sitting there versus
hotels everywhere, and our own app? So we literally are saying no matter who it is, we can have programming that's linear. We're pre-programming for you based on who you are, who's there, everything on there. We get all that. We've collected in the last 9 years, when people were talking, it's crazy, we invested in data heavily. So I was buying maids, coffees, surveys, Wi-Fi's, and everybody's like, why are you spending so much money? Because I'm like, eventually it's going to be worth something, because I came from POS data and I understood that stuff. So now we have 500 million maids. We spent over the last 18 months with TransUnion investing to take all of that, bring it in-house instead of giving it to the agency where they own my data. We brought it in-house. We've managed it with TransUnion. Now we have 120 million homes. So over the last 9 years, somebody in 120 million homes has traveled, and it's part of our data. We have a TransUnion ID where I can go and tell you what kind of car they're driving, which credit score. We can do so many things. So you think about what Terry just said. Imagine me and Terry partnered up. Look how rich that is. Imagine if we partnered up, like we start to partner up, and you start to look at that. So if just us on this call could create something that nobody else has, which is where I think the uniqueness of AI prompts and having that is really getting the data in and then understanding, telling the prompts you wanted to know, and learn and teaching it. So I'm a big fan of AI. It's a tool. I don't think it's going to replace it. I don't think the quality's there yet on production. I've seen it. It looks cool, but it's not there yet. But 5 years?
Yeah.
I think it's there. You know,
5 years or sooner. Or sooner.
Yeah, or sooner. I mean, I saw Jeff Flanagan's post of the AI videos he's making. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And they're now. So, you know, sorry, but I'm a big AI fan on certain things.
Yeah, same. I agree. I think it's really going to create an opportunity where we have more personalized experiences, which is what people want. They don't want the sort of general entertainment. And to that point, there is so much content. There's way almost, I wouldn't say too much, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of content. And so it's really hard to be able to say, okay, but where's the thing that I want? And to like what Lynn was saying, like you want to like, just give me a recommendation. My friends are what's telling me what I should be watching because they've already like done the process and somebody else told them, right? The good old word of mouth is still very much a thing. And so I think if we can figure out ways to what both of y'all were saying, to incorporate that into our watching experience, I think that is what people actually want to have as their experience. And I think as we continue to, you know, I even want to kind of tie it a little bit back because you asked about like brands. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Absolutely. Like they 100% will continue to be a part of the story and how this works because there's so many channels, right? And they don't have the marketing. In order to be able to have the capital to be able to do the marketing, you work with the brand so you have the capital to do the marketing so people can watch your content and then tell their friends to watch your content. It's a full circle moment. You need all of those things to be in place to sort of make that happen. So brands are very much going to be a part of this, and AI absolutely. I am a huge fan. Lynn, I think we could just like that all day because I love AI, and I think it is truly a helpful tool. Again, it does not replace people; it enhances your brilliance. It just does. You know what I mean? So I think it really can help us to have a very different experience, and not just thinking about it from it's going to create productions. I don't think that is the only purpose. And really sort of the purpose that people that are really going to be using it for. I think it's really going to help folks actually experience entertainment in a way they want to.
Yeah, on the brand tip as well. Yeah, brands are very much into the storytelling business right now. There's a whole conference at Sundance now that I've been a part of a few years called Brand Storytelling. It's a big part of the production community now. Brands are finding ways to be relevant surrounding content and within the content. We actually did a program last year with Ancestry.com, who produced their own show called A New Leaf, and it was about, finding, your roots and things like that through DNA. And we actually took that program and distributed it on one of our channels that caters to females and families, and ran that show. It's almost like a branded ads show. But it really, it had ancestry.com. They bought the spots and dots around the show, but we really integrated it to make it look like a normal, 30-minute program that you would watch on TV. So they're figuring out ways to become more relevant other than just, the 30-second ad spot.
I mean, I would agree that to answer your question, Michael, originally, I think AI in terms of creativity with ideation for production, I don't know if we will ever really get there from, replacing the screenwriter or the filmmaker or the content creator from ideation of original, concept. I think it does a great job as a utility, as a tool to, say I want to see Matt Damon and Brad Pitt in a romantic comedy together, and let's have AI, facilitate, a short form piece of content that I can consume for, 15 seconds on the way to Starbucks. I think, we'll see more aspects of that utility. I don't think of in terms of ideating or replacing an original, screenplay, may not happen within the next 5 years. I don't really think it's going to happen within the next 10 years, but I think the employing the use of AI to improve processes. I mean, it's already happening now, as Linwood mentioned. I think AI with contextual AI advertising, there are a lot of companies who implement those tools just to improve the user experience, pushing recommended fast channels or programming. Unless you're a very strong niche like Reverie, I'm looking specifically for a certain kind of content. I'm going to need to rely on AI tools to make recommendations. And I think if there are companies that are making the tie-in from social media, if I have friends and family who are on Instagram, kind of the virtual water cooler talking about their favorite show like Fallout or Last of Us, what have you, having AI tools to help push that content or similar content to my platform, so my audience is going to enjoy similar themed content. But I think really it's meant to improve the localization process. It's meant to improve the dubbing process. It's meant to improve audiences and content creators who might be isolated in different parts of the world, and now they have greater exposure to the larger market internationally because of the help with AI, localization and dubbing and audience reach. But in terms of creativity, I don't think that we'll truly get there to the point where the screenwriter, the film director is going to be completely, cast aside.
I guess I
Can
would
I
just
ask you one
say,
question though, Michael, on that? I'm
Yeah.
circling backwards to you. I was in a, it was at a event. I won't say the guy's name, but he gets his name out of a building, and the guy came to the meeting, and he didn't know what was happening. We had a dinner, and he said, "Listen, I've just made this tool. It's you." And this guy does a lot of public speaking, written multiple books. What they did was take all of that, dumped it into this machine learning system, created version, they call him his name, and you can ask it anything. And it's all he's a business guy, tutoring guy, and he wrote all these books on how to help people do business. And literally he's answering questions in his tone, in his mannerisms, in his thing. And he launched it. Now it's just you can subscribe to him, and as part of that, you can ask it in real time and we'll give you answers. He's uploading all his speeches as he keeps doing them, are all coming in. I'm just, and this is me just paying a question. What if I did that with every Quentin Tarantino script and movie and book? And could you create him in the aggregate? is the only thing I worry about from a screenwriter standpoint is that is something I personally think AI could instruct to use your tone. It may not be 100%, but
Right.
they don't care if it's 100%. They're trying to save, how it is when you're
Right.
doing finance. So like,
Right.
get Quentin Tarantino or get someone like him. You know what I mean? It's a lot less money.
I think a good analogy is that the technology will change the content, but also the audience's expectations will and what they want to consume is different. So yes, if you expect a fancy, highly written screenplay by Tarantino, but those people are our age and they're aging out. Younger people won't care. And a good example is you think about I'm old enough to remember the 1970s and Studio 54 and the kind of music you listened to in clubs back then was done by real musicians, real string sections with Barry White and the Love Unlimited orchestra. Yeah. That's what we all thought was cool music. You go to a club today and all the music is done by machines. DJ. And I would never have dreamed if somebody told me in 1980 that people be going to concerts and watching some guy in front of
behind a computer,
in front of a couple of MacBooks.
I don't get it.
Playing music and people be paying $150 to go see him. It would have been like, what are you talking about? So when I look at my daughter and what she watches on Roblox and what she thinks is entertaining, I could see in 5 years, 3 years, whatever, people watching AI avatars doing comedy or whatever, and 20-year-olds loving it. I'm just saying, this is great. This is entertainment. And watching traditional actors in scripted movies. Yeah, that's like classical music. It's like, oh, Dad, you want to see that old Tom Hanks guy do real acting with who's that Tarantino guy? It's going to be like that, and kids will just be like, it's like music. I remember when rap started, everybody was like, who wants to listen to people talking? Saying words. They can't sing. Yeah. And now the most musicians in the world are,
my kids the same. Revolution. My kids like to watch other people on YouTube play video games I'm like, why don't you just play it yourself? Why are you watching somebody else play it? It's we
MCN days. Michael, the MCN days when Machinima and all those. I remember rolling them up, going, I don't know how this is happening, but these are all the guys we got together. This is how many views they get. What are they viewing? Crazy. You don't want to know. You just want to know. You're all the time.
I will say there's always going to be an audience for the authentic. I mean, we're certainly going to reach an event horizon where we're not going to be able to know if it's real or not, but there's always going to be the audience that's kind of like, I want the vinyl. I want the original recording. I want I want to see the artist play the instrument. And I think that's never really going to go away.
But I think that's what's happening right now for linear. It's why live TV is the only thing winning, right? At this point, if you're not live TV or adjacent or yelling about politics, you're not going to be in the ratings in here. And I think that the end of the night, they want to see their actors. So you still see an Oscars and other things like that get really high ratings as people, even though they try to downplay it, it still gets high ratings because you want to see the people you admire, right?
Yeah.
Then you have live sports. And I'm sitting there going 2 years ago before this, I look at election years as a one-off. But if you look at the year before, 98 of the top 100 shows are live sports.
Yep.
So your point is they want to see authentic. And the place they're finding it is in live.
Yeah.
I think reality is starting to get too reality sometimes. And we almost need a break from that. It's like, I can't even deal with that anymore. It's too much. So,
There's a story that came out that YouTube saw the lion's share of their viewing on actual TV now, opposed to mobile devices and things like that. So I'm wondering how much of that is football? Like that big jump when YouTube TV took over the contract, because I'm an NFL Sunday ticket holder of the last, 18 years. Like I got YouTube TV too because I wanted to see sports. I wonder how much of that viewing on TV is now because of live.
Yeah, I think that about it's 8 hours on it's 8
more
to 10
of what's
hours
on
on a
YouTube.
Sunday.
And also, what more of what's on YouTube is this kind of stuff you would like. If you go back to YouTube 20 years ago when it first started, people used to make jokes that it was just cat videos and stuff. But now when you watch YouTube, you're right, you watch football games or you see highlight packages. The NFL does a great job of taking football games and compressing them down to 12-minute videos. And so I'm sure there's a ton of watching of that. So yeah,
we did all those too. I love
it's a much more premium experience than it was back in the early days when it was just silly videos.
You know what? They've done a good job of playing out. So I watched a Forbes interview. Next thing you know, it just keeps going. So I found myself on there an hour and 20 minutes and going from Bezos to this one. And it just jumped because of my profile on there. So it kept jumping into different speakers. And I'm sitting down. I'm like, damn. At the time, like, what the hell am I doing here? I got things to do. Got called into the interview after interview, and like sucked in. I'm like, shit, let me take some notes. And then I got lost. So YouTube doing a good job on there. You are making sure you move right to the next video before you can click a channel. And it's not like a regular thing to click, so it just keeps going. So that's also really interesting how they're doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at time, and I work for NPR, so we're in the sort of radio production, keep it on the clock business. But as a final wrap up, I just wanted to give everybody a chance to just talk about do a little pitching of what your companies are working on, and like it's something to leave as a takeaway for everybody, and where maybe they can find more information about what you guys are up to at your various companies. I'm gonna go, Michael. What's going on with Dean Devlin, and you guys got a streaming service? And
no, I mean, just that, I can dive in real quick, and I wanted to kind of touch base on just the idea of brands. I think although brands may not be dying away, I think the creator economy certainly is helping to replace or fuel a lot of the attention, because they create community-driven programming. And with Electric Entertainment and Electric Now, we've been fortunate to find a lot of content creators, that have been publishing, distributing on YouTube, on TikTok, have been extremely successful. So we actually acquired or working with a content creator called Dana and the Wolf. They're a pair of musicians. There's original series that has multi-million views on TikTok. It's called The Poly Couple. It's not as salacious as it sounds, but it explores the drama of relationships overall. And it's extremely fun. It's entertaining. Definitely still within the PG-13 range, so it's still not bad to watch at work. But I mentioned that because within the creator economy, I think there's a lot of opportunities for these indie filmmakers, indie content creators on social media who still have that aspiration to get published or to be discovered, although they've found their own success within their communities. And then on the flip side, with Electric Now, as a means to stay competitive within the fast market that's so saturated, finding these creators who have built those communities, who share the same psychographic profiles as our fast audience, and inviting them to produce original content for our fast channel, and that just helps us to differentiate against other fast channels and just expand our audience with new content and with fresh content.
Hey, Aaliyah, what's up with Rubbery?
Hey, yeah, so we actually just released our first scripted original unconventional last week. It has weekly releases, which is doing really, really well. So super excited about that. We're going to production when our next original here actually in a couple of weeks. So things are very busy, as you can imagine. At the end of the day, I really do, sort of echoing what Michael said, at the end of the day, you have to have original content because everybody's licensing to everyone now. So you can see the same show on 75 different places. But if you don't have original content that speaks to your voice and exactly what you're doing, then there's no real value proposition for your viewers to come and stick with you and being able to do that. On the flip side, we also have our ad exchange Prism Riot. We actually just had an article come out last week in Ad Age, specifically around our decision to no longer work with Trade Desk because of their selective enforcement of some of their policies that oftentimes ends up harming multicultural owners. And I'm sure some of the folks on this panel understand what that looks like and how that works. And so we really made a decision to sort of just say no more. And we're going to tell you why no more. So that's what we've been working on our side, and continuing to just, be able to give out really great content and work with brands and help them connect to our community in the most authentic way.
Terry?
We have a lot.
You guys had a huge success with is it the fourth edition of
Yeah,
that?
Terrifier 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you open up a #1 movie at the box office, everyone at Hollywood is picking up the phone to call you. So we've actually we're doubling down on theatrical releases this year. We had success last year. We're going to be releasing 3, maybe 4 titles in theaters this year. So that's been a big focus for us. Inviting brands to get more involved in the process as we do stunts and premieres and things that lead up to the release of the film. Cinesearch, which I mentioned earlier, which is the AI-powered search tool for streaming, as well as just getting and acquiring more diverse content for our fast channels. Looking at, more diversity in terms of the filmmakers that we work with and the content that we acquire, as well as really pushing our podcast network. Right now, it's very, very heavy in the true crime and horror space, but about to make some announcements coming up for some new comedy podcast. We're looking at some women-targeted podcast around wellness. I would say those are the 3 big 2025 initiatives for Cineverse.
Cool. And what about what's going on with Reach?
So first off, I want to work with everybody else on this call, so that's going to be fun. So please make sure we reach out. But Reach has really just transformed in the last 4 years to being the #1 network for live sports. And then when we take live sports, we have NFL every single game, playoffs, Super Bowl for another 6 years. We have NBA that's playing now. We have WNBA that starts in May. We have Miami Open, Indian Open, college football, college basketball, live golf. So with NASCAR, when you look at what we are, it's really a live sports network. And then the original programming is shoulder programming into those live sports. And then we have 3 day parts of live sports, AM Prime, PM Prime, and the connector to all of that is our own Connect AI platform with all of our first party data. So it allows brands to go through the entire journey, plan, buy, execute simply right directly to our platform. 99% of our direct buy creating the platform so they can buy it programmatically through our seats on our own platform. So that's our rollout for this year. There'll be a lot of big announcements around that. A lot of big announcements about our reclassification of where we are now, because we are television, and we're doing really. I'm excited about this year. It's gonna be a big change for us, and it's clarity in our messaging. So we're expanding in all different places, so it's gonna be fun.
Very good. Well, thank you guys for your thoughts and perspectives. And again, it's that for me and probably for Terry and those of us who are the OGs, it is really gratifying to see people like Aaliyah and Michael, the next generation, representing so well. And yeah, I wish you all the best. And thanks to I think we were up to 1.22, 23 people joining us. So thanks to all of you, and see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you all so much for a phenomenal conversation and providing us with some unique insights and perspective. It was great to hear about your journeys and stops along the way, and we are sure that there is even more success for you in the near future. And also thank you for providing us with some great thought-provoking conversation on the latest industry buzz. Friendly reminder that this session was recorded and will be available on demand in YouTube and via podcast on Spotify. And on the near horizon, we have some very exciting events and initiatives for OTTX. On March 19th, OTT X Buzz returns with a session that will feature a prominent panel of industry-leading female executives in celebration of Women's History Month. Join leading executives from Nielsen, JW Player, Kinetics, Codemill, Needham & Company, Spherix, and Shout Studios for the special buzz session. On March 28th, at OTTX will host executive roundtable discussions in Los Angeles with the intention to form dedicated working groups composed of the right stakeholders who will collaborate beyond the event to develop real-world solutions for industry-wide challenges. The roundtable will focus on AI and streaming, monetization, operations, and business impact, advertising and streaming, overcoming key challenges, and EPG metadata and SCTE standardization in a fragmented landscape. Finally, on April 6th, OTTX will return to the NAB show and host an exclusive breakfast for its members at the Sterling Club. Fuel your body and mind by joining your OTT community for networking opportunities, a great breakfast, and presentations focusing on the year ahead and all the happenings at NAB. To learn more about all of our upcoming events and initiatives, please visit us at ottx.org. Thank you once again for joining us today, and we hope you will join us for our next session on March 19th. And thank you, Michael Smith, Michael Johnson, Aaliyah, Linwood, and Terry for your time and contributions. We really appreciate it. We hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much.